has been known to lie, and occasionally they get caught up in the lie.
They lied about Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, but right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
They lied about Kennedy. They lied about Dr. King. They lied about Malcolm X. Now the Dr. King one, I have a friend. Well, he's not a friend. He's an associate. We used to work together in a private ambulance here in Chicago, in the southern suburb. He went back down south where he grew up at, and he went to work for the Memphis Fire Department. Now, you know, that shooter was later known to be on the roof of that firehouse across the street from the Lorraine Hotel. So when I was doing my research, I called him. He said, yeah, dude. He said, right now, if you was to come here and go in that room where that shooter was, you can feel the difference of the energy from when you walk from the firehouse, inside the firehouse, when you go, he said, even to this day, people do not go into that room. That room is empty.
Really?
People, he said, it's just too much at bay there. And a lot of people were involved with that. The police department, the fire department, whatever the case may be. They knew that was definitely a planned hit, with Dr. King.
Okay.
And he said that came out. I heard a podcast. It was a series that ABC did. And they had this lawyer who was relentless, this white dude. And he got some of them country boys down there. They got to talking. And the Klan, basically it was the Klan. It was the Klan basically was the mastermind of it, permissible by law enforcement.
Okay.
So, because a lot of law enforcement were the Klan.
Oh,
it still is.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
like with the whole Malcolm X thing, so that was when you read and you get deep into these conspiracy theories. Me personally, I think they want to get rid of TikTok. They want to ban TikTok, and it has nothing to do with no damn national security in China. I think it has everything to do with people are waking up and not taking the bullshit that the country's telling us, and now we don't have to rely on regular national network news for information.
So why pick on TikTok? Because people could get their news
They've
from
been doing
Twitter
it for a while.
and YouTube and Rumble.
I think they using TikTok because they end up having that convenience to say that China is jagging us off with it, because the parent company, I think, is in China. Or no, the parent company is called ByteDance. I just saw that the CEO of TikTok. He was in front of Congress.
Right, exactly.
Man, they ate him up, but he was very articulate. But he said, I'm born and raised in Singapore. My parents still live in Singapore. I went to the military, then I came to the U.S. for business school. He hustled, right? And I just think that right now, I think the country just got a good excuse by saying national security because of China. They didn't have that excuse these other places, platform, because they American born and they American home. They from America. Like,
yeah, but
Instagram.
That's a legitimate gripe, though. Like, what if China does have access to American information since it's a Chinese-based company? They have our information.
Yeah, well, I mean, but they had that. They can get a hold of that without TikTok. I mean, they breached Hollywood. Remember, they've breached our insurance companies, HMOs and PPOs and Blue Cross Blue Shields. That's nothing new. But all of a sudden, TikTok is our biggest national security.
Yeah.
Come on, man. But the U.S. should really be worried because Russia just paid the debt of Kenya in Africa. They just paid. Kenya was in debt to America to, I think, like 10 billion, some ridiculous amount of money. Putin paid it off for them.
Okay.
So now who do you think Africa is going to go with now? They're going to be on the side of China, and China's already on the side of Russia. And the Kenyan president, I saw that on film. He told his people, you better hurry up and get rid of the U.S. dollar because in the moment, it's going to be worth nothing. They're going to come off the U.S. currency altogether.
Now, what natural resource is in Kenya?
I think the whole thing in Africa is just all the diamonds and the oils and everything is in there. That's the motherland, dude.
Now, was that why Gaddafi was assassinated?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Gaddafi was assassinated. That was kind of like the backstory. Like I said, the resources been there way before Gaddafi, right? Obviously. Gaddafi, anytime you say you about to come off the U.S. currency and it's going to be worth crap, the U.S. government don't like that. They're like, wait a second.
Now, was he going to put it on the gold standard? Because right now, I believe our dollar is not.
It's
on
not
the gold
really on the gold standard. It's on a. Oh man, I just heard a podcast with Anthony Scaramucci. He's an economist, and he was kind of explaining how it was on the gold standard, and then we got off of it, and then.
I don't think we've been on the gold standard
since the '60s. I think Nixon's the one that got rid of it. I believe, right?
I could have sworn I may have read in the '30s. I believe under Teddy Roosevelt. I believe.
Nixon, maybe Nixon put us back on, and then we got off of it. I guess Nixon has something to do with that gold standard.
Okay.
They was scared of Gaddafi, man, like you said, because he had no debt, he had a surplus, he was treating his people well. You know, education was free. I mean, everything that the U.S. is against.
Same way how we kind of like villainized Castro.
Oh, Fidel Castro.
Because everyone is pretty much literate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they get free medical care.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just always Castro being a boogeyman just because, you know, people wanted to kind of like get away from communism, and those people had migrated over to Miami. Mm-hmm. And, you know, those conservative people who had money wanted to migrate to Miami.
Man, one of the best interview clips is Trump talking to Bill O'Reilly. I mean, you're talking about the Fox poster child.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill O'Reilly says, so you admire Putin, and you know you want to be friends with him, and this guy's a killer. And Trump said, "Okay, you think America's so innocent?" He said, "You don't think America killed anybody? You think America is this perfect whatever?" I mean, I'm like, damn. Yeah. I mean, Bill had no response to that.
Mm-hmm.
Bill was like, well, as a country, you know, Trump
he wasn't expecting that.
No,
so.
No, he wasn't expecting.
See, that's why they don't like Trump, because he goes off script,
and he tells the truth when it's the most inconvenience for everybody else. I mean, he lies and he sensationalizes stuff like they all do,
right.
But they don't like about him. Like when he said, like Dave Chappelle said, man, he said, man, that nigga said it's all rigged. You know how I know? Because I was part of it,
right?
And then he said Hillary and Obama was like, no, it ain't. He said, wait a minute now. You heard this white man. He said it is rigged because he was part of it. Dave Chappelle was like, damn, did he just say that?
Yeah.
Of course he knows it's rigged. And yeah, man, but it's crazy. And when you start thinking about these people, like I don't know how true it is now. I got to go doing some digging. You remember that one girl? I think her name was Gretchen. It looked like she always angry. I think she was about female rights or something, whatever. And
Gretchen Carlson?
Is that her name? No. Not the Fox girl. It was some activist. Well, coming to find out that her great granddaddy or somebody is either, I think, a Rothschild, right? And Bill Gates, I think, has relations to the Rockefeller. I mean, it's like these families that you hear about still got people in power today. They somewhat distant relatives, but they all tied still to this day. They got different names, you know, because you get married here and so on and so forth.
I think Obama is a distant cousin of or George W. Bush.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
No. A distant cousin of Dick Cheney.
Oh, Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So how this go is, he's a distant cousin of Dick Cheney, but he's tied with the Bushes because his stepfather, Lauro Santoro, was a heavy-hitting guy in Indonesia with the oils. And he was friends with the Bushes because, you know, Bushes made their money from oil. And there's pictures all over the place with George got his arm around Barry and his stepfather.
Oh, so when he was young.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It was his stepfather. When his mama, well, you know, his mom and dad never really clicked. But when she went to Indonesia, he lived in Indonesia for a while. And then she hooked up with this rich-ass Indonesian dude. So Obama got money. He's got money, like, hand over fist money. Yeah, he just don't, you know, he just knew how to hide it. Like most rich people, he just know how to hide. Like Elon Musk, I didn't realize how he spent his money. He actually earns nothing, supposedly, at one time from Tesla. He gets everything from the stocks that he had, which is worth billions of dollars, whatever. So he'll go to a bank and say, okay, I need a loan for whatever. Now, they know his worth. And what he does is exchange. So what they do is he asks for like $100 million loan. They say, okay, because they know he's good for it, right? And he'll barter stock options to Tesla, obviously he's not going to a regular dealer. He's probably talking right to the developers. You know what I mean? To right to the manufacturer.
Right.
So they're charged 3% on that money, and whatever he used that money for is the growth for his company. Then when his company does well, the stock go 6-7% interest. So now he's able to pay back that 3%, and he made 3%, and then spend a dime of his money.
Oh, so that's how he escapes taxes. Okay.
Them boys, I'm sitting there going, damn.
He cold blooded.
Yeah.
He is cold blooded.
Yeah.
Damn.
So basically, everything is on a loan.
Wow.
Everything's on a loan, and then he said, well, because you don't pay capital gains on stocks, I think it's something, or to the, I don't think you pay capital gains on stocks unless you cash it. So technically,
Right.
he never cashes it in. He just
cashed
offers it to you, and you know the worth of it. So then you'll take that stock. Now, when you cash it, you got to pay taxes on there. But you got more money than what you had on paper, right? So now you can't, like they say, he don't have a bank account. So it's not like you have he's not giving you currency in a bank account. He's giving you stock options that you got to cash through some broker's firm, whether it's, TD Waterhouse or whoever. That's still worth that's still worth something, right? Like the dollar bill in my pocket ain't worth nothing as far as the dollar bill, but except for that dollar. But this man coming to you with, I don't know, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 stock options. The dollar value of that. Now, can it tank tomorrow? Yeah, that's the risk of it, obviously. So I'm sure what they do is, at the moment he gives it to him, so let's say he get a loan for 100 million, but then obviously he gives them stocks options that's probably worth 125 million. And the moment that exchange is done, you'll cash the hell out of it right away.
Right.
Because you're gonna make 25 million on 100 million that you just gave him, plus the interest he got to pay back. It's
And also, he's a celebrity, and he is quote unquote the richest man in the world. So everywhere he goes, everything is come to him anyway.
Right.
He don't got to pay for meals or hotel rooms. I mean,
nope.
I wonder how his private jet works out, but that's probably paid for through his corporation anyway.
It's probably through the corporation, and he probably don't even own it. Most of those people, they don't own it. They don't own those jets. What they do, the best way to describe that is like a timeshare.
Okay.
Okay. So like a lot of people own it, and the money, whatever the maintenance you pay every month for the timeshare, is you times 100 people that pays off that jet hand over fist, plus the maintenance and plus the
pilots. And the
so you just call. Whenever you need it, and I'm sure there are fleet of jets that does that, so that no one would have to say, "Oh, we don't have a jet left." It's a fleet of them. It's a company like Signature Airline is one of them. Well, you know that you work at the airline. Signature is one of them. Signature Airline. That's a private company.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Well, Antwan Dobson, thank you for gracing me with your presence, and
having me.
I just we're not over with yet. We're just getting started.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
We just getting started. So
I didn't know we were recording this whole time. Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, I've been recording the whole time. But I wanted to get to know your background, why you chose to get into the field that you're working in. So and also we get into some Chicago conspiracy theories if you have some of those. So to start out, well, actually first, have you have any clarification on the dinner this Friday?
Dinner this Friday. Is it this Friday? No.
At Ocean Prime.
Wait a minute. What's tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
No, remember I said I worked that day. I think she got back with Cat and said I'm at the firehouse that day.
Oh, okay. Well, that wasn't relayed back to me.
Yeah. Because if you'd asked me, I said no, I'm at work that day because I work tomorrow, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday. Now I'm at work Friday.
Okay.
So we'll be scheduled for really soon.
I saw that you and the lady celebrated her birthday at a steakhouse or something.
Steak 48 downtown on Wabash.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it was nice.
You had a good time?
Had a good time. They kind of, I don't want to say they kind of screwed up. They were supposed to have roses and flowers there, but I think we got there like a half hour after they opened. So we were wondering, I was wondering why the table wasn't ready when we got there. And so when she dipped off to the bathroom, the hostess came running to me and was like, we're going to send somebody to the flower shop right now. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And they did it. So we got at our table, and then they delivered the bouquet to her while we were sitting at the table in the car.
Oh, cool.
For her birthday, yeah. So
cool. Okay.
And then actually they called me today in person and asked me on my experience from yesterday.
Like, did they comp you anything for the inconvenience?
No, no. They gave me a nice 20% added gratuity automatically.
Oh, wow.
I was looking at the bill. I'm like, we didn't order this. And then I saw 20% gratuity. I'm like, they say, because our front staff works so hard. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
you got your tip then.
yeah, you got top of the line, cut some meat. So like do you like your meats like medium well?
I like
medium,
it medium well.
Medium well? Yeah, same here. Okay.
Medium well.
And y'all gonna be moving to the neighborhood real soon. Like, any idea when y'all gonna be
I'm already
settled?
here.
Oh, you already settled in?
And then over in Beverly, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Oh, okay.
I've been there, yeah. So
Okay.
she's transitioning, but I've been there.
Oh, nice. Okay. So now that you're here, we can finally go to LA Fitness.
So I was at the gym today at the LA Fitness in Elsa, and I'm not getting good reviews already. They were talking about it today in the sauna. One, they don't have a sauna at this new one.
Right. Well, right.
That's huge for a lot of people.
That's a negative thing about it, but
I heard it's smaller. They say
Yeah.
the layout is kind of interesting, and the word is they're going to eventually close that one in Elsa. And so one of the guys that was in the sauna said he made a phone call to somebody, and they looked at commercial real estate. They actually got it's up for lease right now. It's on the market right now, either for up for lease or to buy.
okay.
So I'm like, oh, so any day now supposedly that may be closing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, if they close that one, then hopefully the one.
'Cause I wonder why it was kind of light with the constituencies, and they said because some of the people are already at the new one.
Oh, okay. I had noticed that it was like a lot of cops that works out there. The one on
cops and
Pulaski.
firemen.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Cool.
But no sauna. I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sauna and steam room. I love those type of like amenities,
Yeah.
but I might just have to go up to the one in Tinley Park if I wanted to use those.
That's where I go when I'm up there with her
Yeah. Okay.
on Harlem.
Okay.
Oh, but I also have a membership at Export. Chicago Ridge. I just go to Chicago Ridge.
I used to have a membership with them, but like to get there from here, sometimes it's an inconvenience. I got to go all the way to 111th or to 95th, and then go all the way towards Ridgeland, and then turn. So,
Yeah.
but it's just convenient to work out at Planet when I had the membership there. But like the one on Pulaski right now is even closer than Planet Fitness. So I just end
I
up
can go
just
to the CFX with my insurance. So, but she go to CFX. I haven't been to the CFX.
Where's the nearest one?
They
I remember
all over the place.
I remember
think
seeing
it's one
a
right
logo.
there. I think it's one on Cicero actually. Cicero 95th, I think.
Cicero 95th. Okay. I remember seeing a logo, but I'm trying to figure out where exactly
They're
I saw
everywhere.
that. Okay. So is that more of a female centric gym?
No, I think it's a slightly upscaled version of Planet Fitness
Oh,
type
okay.
deal.
Okay. So it's not as good as LA Fitness then, right?
I haven't. I mean, I don't know how good it is now with no sauna. I mean, I'm gonna have to go with the CFX to check it out. I'm gonna see how it is myself. So I haven't
Okay.
been there, so I really can't give it a good judge.
Okay, cool. And where did you grow up at? Like what high school did you go to and all that other good stuff?
I grew up on the west side of Chicago. I went to Hubbard High School.
Mhm.
And that's south. And yeah, I went to elementary. I went to several different elementary schools on the west side.
Mhm.
And then I went to high school in the south side because I was, I didn't want to stop getting in trouble. So I figured I'd go somewhere out of my neighborhood.
And where's Hubbard located?
62nd in Hamlin.
Oh, okay. 62nd and Hamlin.
Over Greyhound. I played ball with Derrick Rose's brother, Reggie Rose.
Reggie.
We went to Hubbard together.
Oh, okay. Okay. So how's Reggie? Is he a cool dude?
Yeah, he was cool. I mean, Reggie could rub people the wrong way, man. But every time when I see him here and there, on the street, he's no problem, man. He's real cool. I mean, I think he's just very protective of his little brother.
Right, right.
That's all that is.
You seem to have a knack for like knowing like a lot of powerful people.
I
Like,
don't know about that, man.
because one time you had put something on Facebook, right? Then I noticed that Jose Sanders had made a comment in one of your posts. I'm like, what? He know Jose
Yeah.
Sanders?
No, I do not know Jose Sanders, but I do other members. I know other members of the media.
Right. Right.
So yeah, and those people are very careful on who they interact with.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't believe I've ever met Jose Sanders, but we've interacted just on a social media platform, right?
Oh, okay.
People get good. You know, I don't start name dropping, but yeah, people get all crazy and then they start texting me. You know this person?
Yeah.
I said they just people, man. It's just like you go to work every day. When they go to work, it just so happen to be over the airwaves, you know. So yeah, they just when you really get to know them, people you know they are just regular people.
Yeah.
From the politicians to the news media. I mean, I know millionaires that are got their own private company, do very well. But if I was to call them right now on the speakerphone, you be like, man, who was that? It's I'm like, man, yeah. But they know how to switch it up when they get in their boardroom and get that.
Oh yeah,
that business. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what black folks usually do. We
have to code switch.
We code switch.
You got to code switch. You got to code switch, man. Got to code switch.
Okay. Now, do you happen to know by chance Val Warner?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, I don't know Val Warner. I think her kids went to the school. That we both know about. Right.
Once I found out about that, I was literally on a lookout just to see if I happen to see her.
I met her. You know what I did? I met her once when I was and my ex-wife. We were there for an orientation. We were trying to see where we were going to send her kids. Mm-hmm. And that's when I met her. I think she was a keynote speaker or something, and she was, muddling up and down the hallway and whatever. But I don't know her.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You haven't ran into her yet, huh?
No, I haven't seen her. I heard that her son may have either graduated or transferred.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, once I found out that her son was going there, I was like, well, let me try to be on the lookout. Because even if she was dropping him off at the rally point where she would probably drop him off because of his grade, I probably wouldn't have saw her anyway.
Okay.
Because I have like a different like street that I had to come down to drop off, Chloe at to the front door.
Right.
Yeah. But I was sure looking, so.
Don't let somebody hear you say that. I want no problems.
Now, like I think that firefighters got like a pulse of their specific city's history. Now, would you kind of like probably co-sign off of that? It seems like old school firefighters, like they know their city's history. So that's why I always thought that like you just have all this Chicago history behind your back.
I don't know if I would say firefighters in general. I would go as far as saying there is a sense of old school firefighter, which I don't consider myself one, although I'm in my 19th year. They have a very entrenched history on the Chicago Fire Department, particularly. Mm-hmm. And I belong to a few different Facebook pages where the old school guys will post different pictures and name names, and it'd be their grandfathers and fathers and uncles and just friends. Oh, this guy was a good fireman. He was at this company. He was at this company, and so on and so forth. And I could sit there and read those posts and kind of take myself back. But man, I guess that'd have been really cool to work with those guys. It's a different department now. Some for the better, some not so much, like anything else. Mm-hmm. But I would say, firefighters that are fire fans, which I consider myself a fire fan, and they know a lot of Chicago Fire Department history. Now, my appetite for Chicago, particularly history, I don't know, it just developed over time because I hated history in school. Mm-hmm. I hate it, and I just think because what they taught just wasn't interesting. It was I think it was world history, but I like it now, like international studies. And I just don't think the teacher did a good job at making it relative or making it very interesting or making correlations to what happened then to why we see what we see now. It was never that correlation.
I think a good teacher's job is to make the material interesting for
relatable,
for all the students to grasp it.
Right. Yeah. I've always said to this day, the best class in all my years in academia was when I was undergrad. Oh, my first master's. I think in undergrad it was a religion class. So I got my undergrad at Lewis University. It's a Catholic. I think it's Catholic institution. So you have to take.
Is that at Romeoville?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to take what they call cultural diversity or religion, like 3 or 4 religion classes. So that could be philosophy, religion. So I took, I think, religion. It was this 70-some-year-old white dude who said the proudest moment he ever had was having a 10 to 15 minute sit down conversation with Dr. King. And the way he broke down, like the Old Testament, I was never taught it that way in all the years of Sunday school that we always forced to go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like it was yesterday, he went to the dry erase board and he wrote the word God on the uppermost center part of the board. And what he did was like create like an algorithm or like a family tree per se. And he put God and he said, okay, name some other names that correlate with God. So people start saying Yahweh, Jehovah, so on and so forth. And then so he wrote those names. And then from those names, he wrote down the origin of how those names began. So then now you're talking about the Sunnis, the Shiites, Abraham, and so on. I'm like, oh, wow. So now here we go talking about history. You hear Sunni and Shiites right now on world news about the fighting that's going on in the Middle East or whatever.
You just think of terrorism or something like that.
Right, because that's all meaning the mainstream media, that's what they report.
Right.
But why are they always in conflict? This conflict would never end, right? It goes all the way back to the biblical days, right? Between, some of like the Israelis and Arab nations and so on and so forth, Muslims and Jews, and which is I think is very interesting because if you go to the north side of Chicago, up and down Devon, they live amongst each other.
I've been to a hookah lounge up there. Yes, yes.
Right, and so when I talk to other people who live in different states, like metropolitan cities and states, they say, oh yeah, they live amongst each other here, and like New York and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So how come the news wants you to? And this makes you wonder, right? It's like it's not as portrayed, but anyway,
and also it's a big Middle Eastern community off of 111th in Harlem.
Bridgeview, right? I think
Yes.
Yeah. Because I think it was a big controversy when they wanted to build a mosque there, and it was a big,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. I think I do remember reminiscence about that. But Chicago history, I don't know. I just, I don't know. I don't know how. I can't even remember where it began, but I just found it interesting, because it's like, okay, I'm living in this city. Everyone knows, they call it the Winter City, not because of the weather, right? And
because of the politics.
Because of the politics.
Yeah.
And then, you put pieces together, and then, I had an interest in politics, so I had joined, I think the 27 War Organization, and then, you start talking to some of them old school people, and they start talking about, Old Man Daly, and then it just kind of just like, okay, so this person connected to this person, and this person is not, and I go, all right, and then it just.
Hey, I just got a question about Daly. Now, was Daly very powerful, even more powerful than a president back then, Kennedy?
I think it depends on the context, right? Generally speaking, I would say no. I mean, he's the president of the United States. Okay. But if you're talking about garnering votes, and Chicago's always been the hub of the nation because of where we look. We're in the Midwest. Trains and stuff come through here. We said, we got one of the biggest airports in the nation, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So the political clout definitely has a footprint on American politics. Chicago has a very large footprint in that space.
Right.
So I mean, you hear tapes of Kennedy calling Old Man Daly. This is the president of the United States, kind of, for lack of a better term, submitting to a city mayor.
Right.
Now, and then Mayor Daley gave him the honor and respect and said, I can't tell, don't quote me, something like, I can't tell an American president what to do, but he basically was saying, blah, 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 blah. And then, Kennedy had said his pleasantries or whatever. And then when Daley was done, he just basically almost hung, they basically hung up on him. It was like, okay, it was click. And I was like, damn, wow. Thanks for calling, hope to hear from you again. It was like very blunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it up on YouTube. I'm like, wow, okay. But that's one of those. I gotta finish reading that book, 48.
The reason why I asked that was because there's a scene in the movie 13 Days in which they were supposed to cancel like a prior engagement with Daly, but they were afraid to get on the phone to cancel their appointment with him. So they were like, well, I don't want to call Old Man Daly. You want to call him? Like, no, I really don't want to call him. I don't want to cancel this event. So it was just more of them submitting that he was somewhat maybe more powerful for whatever reason. I just didn't know the context of why they just didn't want to cancel their meeting with Daly at the time.
So you familiar with Reverend Clay Evans? Fellow, I think it's Fellowship Baptist Church.
No.
Okay, so Reverend Clay Evans was a very prominent, popular pastor in Chicago. And they were building a new church across the street from where their current church was. And this is in the era of the 60s. And Dr. King was scheduled to come to Chicago. Now, I can't remember if this was the time where he rented an apartment over on 16th and Hamlin, or he was just here doing speeches like he did all the time.
Yeah, he did have an apartment back.
He did, right. I used to respond to that area right there. Actually, the building that's there now, they named it, I think, Dr. King building, but it's on like 15th and Hamlin.
Okay.
But so Clay Evans had invited Dr. King. And legend has it that Old Man Daly called Clay Evans and basically tried to get him to uninvite Dr. King. Now, they had put up the steel foundation for this church. It was already broke ground. They had, the steel I-beams.
Mm-hmm.
And when Clay Evans refused, suddenly the permits were pulled, the workers walked off the site, and left the skeleton of a building abandoned. And that church did not start to get complete. If I'm not mistaken, until Daly died. And that's the church they're in right now.
Wow.
And that's how much Jews Daly had.
And when did Daly die?
I want to say either right before or after I was born. I want to say 70. Was he 73 or 75? I gotta.
Okay.
It was
so roughly like 5 years after MLK had got assassinated. Then.
Yeah, let me look that up right now. I think it was. You said when did Daly die?
Yes.
I gotta look that up. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh yeah. So now, as far as your reasoning for joining the fire department, you say you got 19 years.
Yeah, I'm in my 19th year.
And right now, you're currently a lieutenant?
December 20th, 1976.
Okay.
When he died.
Okay.
He died in office.
Oh, in office, okay.
He died in office, and that's a very interesting story, too. But
And also, I'm kind of curious to know, I didn't know nothing about politics at the time. Harold Washington had passed away while he was in office, so you kind of get into as far as, like, what was the post of the city that you could probably remember back then when he had passed away?
Harold Washington, I was a kid, then, but from what I can remember in some of the research and readings, man, that was a big loss to the city. Because Harold was loved by across all racial lines and cultures and ethnicities. Of course, he was the first black to be elected mayor in the city of Chicago. And it was from that election was where the political landscape has changed and how they do elections now. Like we don't have so-called primaries per se. We do and we don't. So we have an election. So whoever gets 50 plus 1% of the vote on election day is the mayor. However, whoever do not get 50 plus 1% of the vote, the two top vote getters goes into a runoff.
Yep.
Okay. So Harold was running, and a lot of white folks was running. It was Bernie Epton, I believe, and Jane Byrne, and I believe Daley at one time. So the vote got split, and Harold got in. There was some racist stuff going on. They said, man, vote for me or else. It's like, no, vote for me or before it's too late. It was on the button.
Oh, wow.
It was on the button,
Wow.
I was like, wow. And this man, if I'm not mistaken, he changed parties. It was he changed political party. It was crazy. So from then they said, oh, never again. So then So that's how we like I said, we don't have primaries like we have to, have a Republican or Democrats. No, it's whoever if you're able to pull off 50+1% of the vote, that's you're the winner.
I mean, yeah, you're definitely a great candidate to like galvanize all type of different types of
but
groups.
that hardly ever happens, and that's why one of the political games is they just put people in the races to split the vote. So they try to keep a certain person, whoever they don't want to be in, and make it harder for them to win that day and make them go to a runoff. So it's
How you feel about Auntie Lori? How you feel about her?
I just think I just think Lori didn't have the temperament of what's needed to be a successful chief executive for the city of Chicago. Chicago, I've always said Chicago is a big city that's run like a mom and pop shop. And what I mean by that is the city moves on relationships. You get things done on who you know, basically.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a $1 billion industry and 2.5 million people, whatever it is, the third largest city in the United States of America. But when you really sit down and look at the people that are the jargonites of the machine, per se, pun intended, it's very few people that actually make this joint move. And it's all about relationships. And it's like from the person that's trying to get a job on the garbage truck all the way to the person that's trying to be mayor, it's a handful of people. When I say a handful, I think I'm being somewhat generous. There's a handful of people that control that spectrum of mayor to the guy riding the garbage truck. So that's what makes the city so very mom and pa-ish, as far as not many people are at the control switches.
So is it still more of a mafia influence like back in the day?
No, I don't. I'm just saying. I don't think it's mafia influence. I just think the way our electeds has the system set up that once you're in, unless you really screw up like Lori did.
Right.
Lori was the second mayor in the history of Chicago to not get a second term. Think about that. I think Chicago been around since 1787 or something like that when we incorporated. So she's the second one to not get a second term. However, she's also the second black mayor too, right? Well, okay,
third, right?
If you count Sawyer. I guess you got to count Sawyer. Okay, so she's the third, but Sawyer got in because of the death of, and that was all orchestrated as well too. Obviously, backdoor deals with the Oliac and so that was a whole thing too. So she's the third, but she's the first female. First openly gay black female.
Yeah.
Yes, right. First black female. The first female was Jane Byrne. So yeah, for you not to get back in, I mean, look at that. Look how many mayors we've had, and you're the second one not to get a second term.
I mean, as far as her bickering with the police, I guess the teachers she kept fighting with. I mean, it was just too many things just going her way. Going against her, as well as COVID restrictions and let me see. I mean, it was just so much stuff that was just going on in the city. Obviously, I don't live in Chicago per se, but just kind of like hearing stuff in passing, I just know that she was just constantly dealing with stuff. She never really had like a clean 1 or 2 year period. It was just scandal after scandal, and also like the most famous scandal that I've seen, it was when it was like a grandmother that was dragged out of her apartment and she was naked, and like the police really didn't rectify the situation. So she had to deal with that.
What's interesting about that is she's not a cop. She wasn't on the scene, right?
Right, but mayors have to answer for those things.
Right, the mayor when it hits the media and when it hits public attention, then yes, everyone is looking at the mayor like, what are you going to do about this? And I would have handled it a little bit different, but people have to I don't. The one thing I don't like about politics is, I mean, the heavy is the head that wears the crown. I get that. I really do. All right, and I do think that it just comes with the territory. I'm a fire lieutenant. One of my guys does something stupid or whatever, it's my fault. Even if it ain't my fault, it's my fault. I get that. Yeah. But it has to be a line of demarcation to say, okay, that's just silly to blame the mayor for if a cop goes and goes rogue. Do you know how many layers it is from the mayor to a B cop? You know,
I get it. So, just like they blame the president for like unemployment rates. Like the president really don't have any type of direct influence on unemployment rates. I mean, it's all about the open market. It's all about corporations.
But it's the messaging and it's the people that you have in charge. I mean, because they do, you know, get confirmed that the Federal Reserve, chairman of the Federal Reserve, and you got you know, which they all come from Goldman Sachs, but that's a whole nother podcast. It's like how does everyone they become the finance chair or they come from the chairman of the Federal Reserve, whatever. They all come from, you know, Goldman Sachs. But anyway, that's like I said, that's a whole nother podcast. Brilliant people though, but it's like, okay, what's the connection with Goldman Sachs and the White House? But anyway, so the mayor, you have to appoint. You know, they appoint department heads with the approval of city council. And if things are not going the way you think they should go, then you got to have a come to Jesus conversation with your appointee. You know, so, you know, I like, what do you think Rahm Emanuel Achilles heel was? Laquan McDonald. If there wasn't a Laquan McDonald incident, Rahm Emanuel would still be mayor. Hands down.
Yeah, but like, did he have an election right after that and he still ended up winning?
Well, no. Well, yeah, because the tape wasn't out. The videotape did not come out until after. That was the whole so-called scandal behind that.
Okay.
The incident happened right before the election, but the public didn't find out until after the election.
Oh no, that was Anita Alvarez that was ousted because Kim Fox ended up beating her in the election. So okay, I'm getting the two different races mixed up. Okay, I got you. All right.
So now the tape is out, and the famous line, like they asked about the whole Nixon or Watergate. When did you know? Wait, what was the two lines it says? What did the president know, and when did he know it? So then the running thing was, what did Rahm Emanuel know, and when did he know it? And people inside will say, you know, well, he knew it at this point. Some people go, no, we're not buying that, and it's kind of like, okay. You know, like remember Tony Preckwinkle, she ran. How does Tony Preckwinkle, chairman of the Cook County Democratic Organization, a household name in Chicago, was an alderman, and the president of the Cook County Board, do not get elected and lose to someone that no one heard of named Lori Lightfoot? Almost 2-1, I think. Well, people would say because of the whole sugar tax. And not because of the tax itself, because people don't think that she was genuine about why she created the tax. You know.
Oh, interesting.
People would say, you know, she said because it was because of health.
Yeah. Well, because she ended up being president after Strozier, right?
Yeah, she beat Strozier.
She beat Strozier? Okay.
Right.
Okay. You know what? Fine gentleman. You know,
I've known Todd for a while.
Yeah, I mean, you see, like I said, you know people.
There's no few, man. It's a good dude,
you know
man.
People.
That was. I mean, when I talked to him, when we first met, it was kind of like on the heels of that, and it's kind of like, man, you know, your daddy was a hitter, man. You know, John Strozier, they got named a big hospital after him. You know, he come from a 3-room shack in Arkansas. And worked his way up to be the Cook County Board president of the second largest county in the nation. Steven Spielberg can't write a better script than that. And then you are a direct descendant of that.
Right, yeah.
And things didn't work out as the way as conventional wisdom would say it would have, you know, but Todd is doing well. He's okay.
I used to live off Polk and Damon when I was living in the dorms at UIC, and I was literally just a couple minutes away from the hospital. So
yeah.
I used to walk past it all the time if I was to go to the Bulls game or something, because I always walk to the game from my dorm.
From right there, you go right down Damon.
Yeah, and I went to the hospital to like get my couple vaccine shots, and I always go to the VA hospital pretty much right on Damon, and it's amazing how much that they kind of renovated that area.
Oh yeah,
It looks totally new.
Some of the renovation started. I want to say maybe around 19. It was when a Democratic. What I'm trying to say, the DNC, Democratic National Convention, came here.
So back in 96?
95, 96, right, when they started cleaning up Madison, put the potteries in the middle, and, got the nightlife kind of change, and,
And also the United Center was just built. So, yeah,
new one.
They was already cleaning that area up.
Right.
Yeah, big time.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I love those pictures where you see the old Chicago Stadium and the United Center before they knocked down the Chicago Stadium. Seeing though they literally was across the street from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So across the street from the United Center now is a footprint from where it's a parking lot, but it's where the Chicago Stadium used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same way with Comiskey Park,
right?
The old one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right across the street.
So, yeah. So you had mentioned how you spent 19 years in, and like, what was your first thoughts on as far as like, what, I want to be a firefighter. Like, what was that whole process like?
I was at a daycare, summer camp. That's it was on Ashland and like maybe 14th Street, not too far from where the Costco is right now, right next door to Montefiore School.
It's like a Jewels over there too.
Right. So it was I was a daycare at the summer camp. And one of the field trip was to a firehouse. And the firehouse was Engine 103, which is basically Laughlin and Madison, right in the parking lot of the 911 center. Mm-hmm. And I just remember we walked in, and I was like, whoa. Like an enigma, man. It came over me. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I was sold right instantly. It was definitely euphoric. I walked in, and I had no doubt from that day of what I wanted to do and to be a fireman. And then as I got a little bit more independent, where I was able to leave the house and go places by myself within the neighborhood, Engine 107 was down the street from where my aunt lived. My aunt used to live at 715 South California. Engine 107 is 1101 South California. So it was like 4 blocks south of there.
Yeah.
And then, I started hanging out there, and, some guys took me under their wing, and then, as they say, the rest is history.
So, now, do you have to go through EMT training as well to be a firefighter?
No, well, yeah. Once you get hired, they give you the training.
Yeah. And how long is the training?
The EMT portion of it is about 3 months, and then the firefighter side of it is about 3 months. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I came on as a single role paramedic though. I came on as a paramedic. So when I came on, I went right to the ambulance. I was just a paramedic.
Oh, there was like a back doorway to like get in.
Oh God, boy, don't say that in public. Back door, man. Woo. No, because the reason why it's not back door is because paramedics still got to take and pass the same exam as a civilian. That's the part that people leave out. Mm-hmm. Now they are pulled from a different list. You have a civilian list. And they have another list, what they call a crossover. So you cross over from being a paramedic to a firefighter paramedic. So there's 2 lists. However, to get on either list, you still have to take that same civilian test. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of ignorant when people know that and they still want to say back door, because how is it a back door? You already a city employee. You got a file number. You have an employee number, and you currently work for the Chicago Fire Department. You just have a different job description.
Right. Right.
So to me, it's like any other job. If you work at the 911 center, you go in as a call taker. And then as you take a test to be a dispatcher, then now you're a dispatcher. Then after that, you want to take a test. If you want to be what they call a senior alarm operator, you got to take a test. So it's a promotion. It's a different job description, whatever. So you don't say, you don't say, well, we should go outside. You're a call ticket, that's it. And then now we should give a test to the outsiders to become a dispatcher. Do you know? It's a progression, right? It's the same. You're in the same department, same city, same whatever. But that's just
Yeah,
one of the things that the fire department, one of the growing pains.
yeah, when you got in, did you have to take a test with like the whole general public? Because I remember when
Yeah,
I
that's what I was just saying. Yeah,
okay,
I
so
had to take the 1995
95.
firefighter's exam.
Okay. Okay. I took my test back in, I want to say it was 2007. It was at McCormick
2006
Place.
test. Yeah,
Yeah. It was around that
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I got the letter. I passed the test and went straight to my mom's house, but I never got a call.
And unfortunately, that's not an anomaly, man. That happens a lot. People don't get a call, and people get called with out of and supposedly out of rank order of whatever the order's supposed to be in these. I mean, yeah, we're going through that right now, actually.
Now, those who do pass the test, how long do they kind of like keep you in limbo just in case you may get like a call in to like go to like the next I guess
that
training.
really depends on the availability of internal affairs, because that's the internal affairs. When you first start processing, that's all basically internal affairs. They don't want to handle your file.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first get called to do your background, and after they do the background, you can do the medical. And then once they done your background, they go to your house, they run your background, your criminal background, and you take a drug test and so on and so forth. Then they turn over your file to personnel. And then at that point, I think personnel assigns you a file number. So every employee has a file number and an employee number. So I believe once your file, if I'm not mistaken, once your file has been cleared, internal affairs, I think they turn it over to personnel, and then they go through the rest of the process where you got to do your medical, you got to see a doctor and take a physical and so on and so forth, and all that jazz. So I mean, it really depends. If they need a class right away, it can happen right away. Sometimes people, it's like, I sometimes you hear people it take almost up to a year or something after they got the first call to the time they're on the job.
Okay.
It could be very prolonged.
Now everyone trains downtown.
Yes.
And once the training is done for that day, are people staying on the premises?
No, they go home.
Oh, everybody go home. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Not like the state troopers; they stay there.
Okay, and I used to drive past there every day when I was living in the UIC area, because that's LA Fitness on Canal.
Right.
I used to drive there every single day, not knowing that that's where the fire started.
Oh, Mrs. O'Leary?
Yes.
Yeah, that
yes.
was. That's the very site where the farm was.
Yeah, they have a like a fire statue that's in front of the door.
Flame.
Yeah, the flame. Yep. I thought it was interesting. I mean, just doing research just to just have this podcast, I was like, wow, like the fire started there. And
actually, if you go inside the academy, it's a spot.
Oh, the spot.
It's a spot where it's roped off, and it said this is, the spot where the farm was, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, but I heard that the cow was vindicated.
Yeah, it's some guy with a jack leg or something like that. It's yeah. But it did happen there.
Now,
yeah.
Now, are you aware of how far the fire spread it to? Just curious if you found out about this through your research.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it went to as far as 1600 north to. See, I don't know if the train like 1600 north to almost Halsted or something. Obviously to the lake, and I think maybe as far south as like maybe something like Roosevelt, something like that. It was big.
It was as far north as Fullerton, whatever Fullerton is.
Oh, is it Fullerton? Okay, that's 2400 north.
2400 north. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
It was as far as Fullerton, but I think a lot of the mass destruction was around what Old Town is right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Like that's why the water tower survived literally water tower survived the Chicago fire.
Oh, so that was the only building that pretty much kind of like
because it was a brick.
It was a brick
because it wasn't wood because it was a brick.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
That water tower that's standing right there on Michigan and Chicago Avenue that survived the Chicago fire.
It's still like a lot of land mass as far as from what Taylor Street as far as to Fullerton and from Jefferson.
Yeah, but I don't think. But I think you have to conceptualize it not as you see it now.
Right.
You could probably. I think back then you probably can go miles where it was like nothing. Right. I mean, it was just rural land and
dirt roads.
Right. So you may have nothing, but if you. And in context now, oh man, that's a lot of property. That's a lot of damage, in today's time. Back then, I mean, I'm sure it was compared to then. It was like it was a lot going on. So yeah.
I always wonder, like, if there's a fire that happened, how do the firefighters know how a fire was started and where it was started at?
Well, we have a division called OFI, Office of Fire Investigations. So after the frontline companies extinguish the fire, after the main body of fire has been extinguished and we've done our search and rescue efforts, we are trained to minimally interrupt the contents of whatever that was on fire in the area, because OFI are basically fire detectives. So obviously, the more you manipulate the content, it's kind of hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they understand we got a job to do. I mean, thing is blazing, and you got people to be rescued. We're not worried about preserving. That's what we call evidence preservation.
Right.
We're not worried about that at that point.
Right.
We're worried about evidence preservation when we do what we call salvage and overhaul, which is after the main body of fire is out. The incident commander will call for OFI. They come out, and they typically, before we pick up our hose and clean up whatever, they come talk to the first companies. Hey, was the door open when you got here already? Okay, so it wasn't open, so you had to do forced entry. Did you smell anything strange? Did you smell any accelerants or whatever? Did you see anything out of the ordinary? Like, what room was on fire first? Was this on fire and this room was smoking, so on and so forth? So after they do their interviews, then they go in and they have some really good technical training of what they call smoke patterns, where they know where the origin of the fire, where it spread it, where it started, so on and so forth. It's pretty interesting. It's a heavy science base.
Oh, it's literally. Oh, right. It's like a forensic investigation. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Sometimes it says undetermined because sometimes it's too damaged. Like, we're going and just because there's like a lot of fire damage, so then we got to go poking holes here and poking holes there, poking holes, and it's kind of like they really have nothing to go on. Mm-hmm. But if it was something where the more evidence that's preserved, the higher likely chance that they can figure out. And that's a key component, because that report, that investigation is what helped prosecute. The state's attorney's office need that, you know, because now if they're looking at Joe Blow to be the arsonist, then like obviously got to match his story and so on and so forth. And they get the report. And, you know, you say, you know, I was here and I was in this room over there. It started over there. And the report goes, nah, it started over here. So why are you lying? You know, so that's very vital for prosecution.
Wow.
Officer at OFI.
I had recently read Thomas Sowell's basic economics book, like maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And he mentioned about it was common for like landlords under rent controlled cities to intentionally burn out their buildings because they're kind of like tapped out as far as how much they could kind of like charge their residents. Mm-hmm. So they would just rather just cash out from the fire insurance.
Well, back in the day in Chicago, they had a thing that was a notion called fire for hire. And that was, I believe, want to say like in the 70s and maybe early 80s, where these landlords were getting the insurance money from them. I mean, it was rampant. I mean, it was fire. It was blazing we get fires every day in the city, but it was like several, all day, all night. It was ridiculous. But you don't see that as often as, you know, as it used to be. But it was a thing called fire for hire back. That was kind of like the little nickname that they gave it.
Wow.
It was crazy.
And how heavy is y'all gear that y'all wear?
I think with our tank and our gear, I think it could be up to almost 70 pounds.
Wow.
Like I think 50, I think, man, 50. Remember, I think about 50 pounds with the coat, boots, bunker pants, with our SCBA, which is self-contained breathing apparatus and helmet and all that stuff. It could be about 50 pounds if I'm not mistaken.
Now, at the academy, when you wear all that gear, what's the, I guess, training qualification to, like, wear the gear and like, do you have to, like, climb up, like, a rope or climb up a ladder or hold, like, one of those heavy dummies or?
No, you mean after you hired?
No, as far as during the academy.
Right, when you're in the academy.
As far as to like, train that, to pass that portion of the exam as far as, like, with all the gear on.
Well, if you're in the academy, you already passed the test. So are you talking about the test to be hired, or after you've been hired and now you in training?
As far as training.
Okay, so
because once you're training, can you still like be disqualified if you can't do certain things?
I mean, yeah, right. It doesn't really. It's very, 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 very rarely happens. But yeah, the answer to that is yeah. Okay. You still could be disqualified technically even after your training and you go out in the field, because you are what they call a candidate status for 12 months after you graduate the academy.
Mm-hmm.
Because as an officer, I have to do these candidate evaluation, what they call CDOs, candidate drill objectives. And based on my discretion of your performance, me and another officer, which is typically maybe the captain, I supposed to write a form, say, this candidate lacking this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. Or you can be a veteran and you start screwing up or whatever. They can send you back to the academy for retraining, depending on what the issue was. But that's very rare that you get dismissed. But yeah, you can still be disqualified.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
well,
you can be, but it doesn't really happen much though.
I heard that y'all got like a sweet type of schedule. Y'all could be on 24 hours and have like 3 or 4 days off. Is that how y'all?
The fire side, if 1 day on, 2 days off. EMS is 1 day on, 3 days off.
Okay, and describe as far as like a typical like shift. Okay, like there's like no fires going on. Y'all just in a firehouse, just kind of like maybe doing training,
inspections, duties in the firehouse, like chores. Somebody got to clean it up. We clean it up.
Why not hire cooks and cleaners?
That's it's not gonna. Well, you're talking about 5,000 people, right? And then you are saying if it's a single engine house, you got 5 people working. If it's an engine in the truck, there's 10 people working. Someone know how to cook. Typically, on every shift, there's typically one guy who's at least a C+ cook.
Is it like a rotation as far as like people?
Every house is different. Every house is culturally different. Most houses do have a primary cook because that individual likes to do it. It's continuity. You know how it is. It's like here, right? If you had different cooks, you don't know that you're out of ketchup or you don't know you're out of seasoning or sugar or whatever. But if you got one main cook, they kind of know what's in the food pantry and how much things cost and okay, we just had burgers last day. We roasted today. We'll do whatever.
I see firefighters in like the grocery stores like early in the morning all the time. Because once I drop my girls off, I always see them shopping.
They go shopping because traditionally we eat at 12 and 6, 12 in the afternoon for lunch and 6 in the evening for dinner. Mm-hmm. So in between calls, we're doing training, inspections, cleaning the firehouse, and whatever other special training do. Like we have regular training we do every day. It's supposed to be 3 different trainings every day. And then whatever the chief want to do aside from that schedule, or whatever the commissioner or the deputy fire commissioner of operations may want to do some training on some new equipment or just a refresher. Just what we call back to the basics. Yeah. It may be a little stale. So in between calls, there's something to do. And then after 5 or 6 o'clock, it's kind of like your day. Whatever you want to internet or work out or so yeah, it's very interesting in that job.
Well, I have one more question, but sure. I feel like we can talk for like another 2 hours.
Whatever, man. I'm here.
It's still so much stuff I need to go through, but
whatever you want.
But just to kind of tell the people what you're going through right now, as far as taking a captain's exam, like describe the whole process. Like, how often are you studying? And once you get to that level, I'm sure it's very political and all types of stuff going on.
Well, actually, it's not as political because that's a career service rank, so there's an exam involved. Mm-hmm. There's some other stuff that I'm not going to get into as far as the career service does. But once you reach a certain rank, then it is a political appointee. Once you get to battalion chief, everything higher than that is appointed by the fire commissioner, deputy district chief. There's no test. You get tapped, you get knighted, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm currently a lieutenant. That that's a test, very strenuous test where you're reading over 2,000 pages of material for an average of 100 to 110 questions.
So you don't have any idea what's going to be on the test. You just got to make sure that you're.
Well, what they do is the human resources hire a company, and the company consults with. So human resources for the city hires what they call a test developing company. So that test developer will go, okay, Chicago Fire Department, what would you like to test them on, whatever. So the Deputy Fire Commissioner of Administrative Services is kind of like the liaison between the fire department and the testing company, and they put what they call SMEs together, subject matter experts, which are people in the field. So we just gave an engineer's exam. I was an engineer before I was a lieutenant. I was one of the SMEs to help write the practical part of the engineer's exam. So the test company actually writes the questions based on what we call the source material. This general order, this special directive, this quick drill, this academy note, this whatever. All of our catalog of documents, they give that to the test developer, and they write questions of which they think is important. They typically take previous tests too, though. That's how I found out the inside baseball to that, because I was one of them, right?
Right.
And the subject matter experts meet with the test developer. Hey, are these good questions? Yes, no. If not, why not? Or you can't ask it this way because whatever. And then the test is compiled. The actual test is compiled. And then so what we get in the meantime is what we call a study guide, and it tells you it's called a source material list. It's a list of everything that's fair game that could be on the test. Now everything's not gonna make the final cut.
Right.
You already know that. Like I just said, there's only 105, 110 questions, and it's over 2,000 pages of start to finish material to read. But everything on that source material list is considered fair game. So if it's not on that list, they can't ask you that question. They can't ask you a question that's not on that source material list. So you do have an idea, but you really don't know. But you really don't know. You do and you don't. You just know that anything on this order can be on the test. Anything on this order can be on the test. If it's not on that list, it can't be on the test. So I don't. There's no use of reading it. Then when you really start getting savvy, where okay, I'm testing to be a captain. So as I read, it says all members shall. I'm gonna be responsible for that. Or they give a number, 32 parts per million, this, whatever, And once they start saying the battalion chief shall, I don't read that. I'm not taking the chief's test. So they won't ask on a captain's exam what a battalion chief to a degree, because as a captain, you can act up to be the battalion chief. So you gotta have an idea what they do, but they won't go deep into that job description to what the job duties of a battalion chief, because that's not the test you're taking.
And how many captains are they hiring? Or
well, it depends, man. It's very dynamic. They average about a year. It's about 60 to 75 captains a year. They average about 105 to 110 lieutenants a year. They promote, and about maybe 20, 25 chiefs a year, battalion chiefs.
How many people are taking a test? Do you have any idea?
So on the lieutenant's exam, it came out to be, I think, about 1,500 people that made the list. Maybe 1,800 took the test. On the captains, is usually about a third of that, maybe about 500-600 or whatever, 400 or 500. And then on the chiefs, usually about 100.
Okay.
Yeah. So
now, do you have any aspirations to be, upon reaching captain, to be tapped into getting into some type of
it depends on the day.
Like
it really depends on the day, man.
Being a top dog.
I'll be lying if I said I didn't have aspirations in being the fire commissioner one day, because I had a vision. But that I don't know now. It's I don't know. The older I get, the more peace I want now. Obviously I want to make a good living and support my family and whatever. But right now, my peace and my health, mental and physical health, is much more of a priority now. I'm knocking on 50 years old door. I'll be 49 at the end of the year. So, yeah. So, if the opportunity presented itself, of course I will consider it, because that's very honorable and noble to be the fire commissioner. But do I wake up every day and say, man, I want to be fire commissioner? And no, I don't. Right now, like I tell people, right now I'm concentrating on being a captain, take that test, let me get that job, and then perhaps take the battalion chief's test, and then by that time I'll be over 55. I have over 25, 26 years, and I can retire. I can actually retire in a year and a half. When I'm 50, I have my 20th year, and you could retire at with with a nice pension at 50 years of age, 20 years of service. You get half of what technically is 50% of the best 4 years of the last 10.
Oh, so y'all do high 4. Okay.
Right, right, and
Okay.
then every year after the 20th year is 2% more. So 21 years is 52 and a half, and then
Man.
22 years is 50. It goes all the way up to 75%. Then after that, it caps off.
That's a sweet deal because we do 1% after 20 years for us.
Yeah, we get 2.5, and then it caps off at 75%.
Mm.
I think state troopers they get 80. Like, there's some agencies, some government agencies get 80%. And someone told me the other day, someone get 100%. I don't know what state or whatever.
Wow.
I said 100%. Geez, how do they afford that? You know, I'm like, man, no taxpayers got to be getting rocked. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's nice, man. So I know it just, I do some other stuff on the side where if that really takes off, you're not going to be a millionaire being in public service. If you really want to make some serious money.
Unless you're in Congress.
But they didn't get their millions from being a congressman. Well, indirectly, yes, but not directly.
Right.
I mean, you got millionaires working for the city, but they're not. The payroll's not $1 million. The influence that they have and contracts makes them the millionaire. So. But I'm just speaking in earnings and entrepreneurship. If you want to be, big money millionaire, and $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year.
You got to go
that's
to
private sector.
Private, right? Exactly.
Entrepreneur, you got to go private sector.
Yeah.
And so, the way things are moving, I don't know. You probably need to make $1 million to pay rent. In about 10, 20 years from now. I mean, I don't know how people do it. That's making, what they say the average what's middle class $40,000. I don't know how do you with no assistance.
Maybe they're doing it in I don't know, Mississippi dollars, but in Chicago, I don't see how people can do it, especially if they got kids
and car. I mean, where you living? It's like what is your rent?
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I'm saying. So, but yeah, man, being a fire commissioner would be very interesting. I'm sure it's very stressful, but anything worth the salt is going to come with a little stress.
Yeah, of course.
It's about how you handle it. But I'm living a childhood dream. I've always wanted to be a fireman, and particularly I wanted to be a Chicago fireman. But I thought about I've been approached and thought about running for office, but I kind of ruled that out. I don't think I don't have to.
As far as like an alderman or what?
No, if I ran for something, it'd be start off as maybe a rep and work my way to be a senator, and then the ultimate. To me, if I wanted to be an ultimate politician, it'd be a U.S. senator or a congressman, because that's when you really are in the thick of things.
Yeah. Try to get on one of those committees.
Right. Senators, man, nothing. All the department heads of the country is concerned is confirmed by who? The Senate.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight. Every Supreme Court judge, senatorial confirmation, department heads, secretary of this, secretary of that. You got, Senate confirmation, not Congress, senators.
I want to get on the intelligence community because I want to know about the UFOs. I'm kind of into that right now.
Can you imagine what they know? Can you imagine like what President Barack Obama was walking around here every day and inside that man's head?
Yeah, he knows a lot that we are not privy to.
Actually, even when you are done with your term, you still get security briefings. You still get security briefings, right? You're invited to a lot of those briefings. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they still get Secret Service protection for life.
Right. Yeah. You remember they stopped that, and then it came again. Then I think Clinton or Bush, we did it. He asked Congress to rewrite that. It was life for a while, and it had an interruption where it was only 10 years after office, and then it went back to life.
Oh, interesting.
And I forgot what their pension is. I mean, it's pretty decent, but that's nothing compared to what they make on like speaking engagements.
I think Obama, he was making I want to say 650 per speech.
650 grand.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, dude, they get some serious money,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
they typically hire a team of writers.
Right. He don't got to write it. Right. He don't got to
I
write
mean,
his
but
own
he
speech.
does do a lot of writing.
As a matter of
He's just a
fact,
brainiac.
you a speechwriter.
I am.
Yeah.
I am
You a speechwriter.
I am a speechwriter. You're right. I have written speeches for elected officials, and some of them, well, most of them, they don't want to be known as someone having a speechwriter. I mean, it's only they all want to perceive like they the ones that pen some stuff. I mean, no one expect for like the mayor to write all of these stuff because they say speeches every single day. There's no way, president or whatever. But other elected officials, when they have like major speaking engagements, I get a phone call. Hey, Antwan, I'm speaking to the Economic Club. Or Antwan, I'm speaking at a Black History.
And what's a proper notice to like let you know, like, hey, I need a speech for this event. Like, how much time do you need?
It really, man, it really depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I can sit there and pen something. In the first piece I've ever written, I did it in 45 minutes, and it was a pretty good speech. But that's when I was hitting the rhythm and I was really feeling it.
Right now, you got that captain's exam just pretty much hovering over your head right now. So like,
Yeah,
if someone
so
wants to approach you,
if someone approached me, you had to give me several weeks, if not like a month.
Oh wow.
Like a while, unless it's someone that I really know and I really like and they're really cool, and then I'll just carve out, maybe a day or two, or at least several hours in one day. Like I see, like I typically try to study twice a day. I'm not always successful. I usually try to do 3 or 4 hours per session. Like today, I was at the library for 4.5 from 12, and I left at about 4:15, 4:30. Just straight writing notes and studying.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's because the library I went to, they don't open until 12. So my goal, what I typically try to do, and it's hard because this is because life. I try to wake up. I read for like maybe 2 hours. So like wake up at 5 or 6. I read to about 8. Then I go to the gym. I'm there for about 2 or 3 hours, including with the sauna and all that. Taking my time. Then I do a bulk of the studying in the afternoon. So that's when you got the 3.5, 4 hours straight. Then I typically try to go home, get something to eat, watch the news, see what's going on at the 5 o'clock, 5:30, and the 6 o'clock news. And depending on how I'm feeling and what's going on, I may hit the book again for like another hour or two, like from 7 to 8 or from 8 to 9. Or, depending if I'm reading something that's very interesting to me and, so I'm not always successful at that, but I do at least get a solid 3 to 4 hours minimum a day. So if I was writing a speech for somebody, I would have to make a conscious effort to say, okay, this time at this day, I'm not studying that stuff. I'm gonna do this speech for this person. But yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely doable. You could probably maybe sacrifice a little reading time instead of reading for 2 hours. Maybe read for 1 hour.
Who studying?
No, as far as you used to write a speech. So like,
well, it depends, man. Yeah. It really depends how technical it is. And when I say technical, if someone is speaking to a particular interest group, I got to do some research.
Oh
right?
yeah.
So if they want to talk about, so I wrote a speech for Black History. This person was at a Black History. She was the keynote for a Black History event, but she wanted me to cater it towards, I think, women that made their mark in Black history. So then now I gotta do some.
Did you write the phrase "Black Girl Magic" in your speech?
No.
No.
So when I'm writing speeches, the people that comes in my head, well, first, a good speechwriter would try to write to the person that's speaking to their cadence, to their cadence and to their vernacular. So you can't go writing $1 million words when you never heard that person say $1 million word. They'd be stumbling all over their place.
Right.
And then when you write, if you want to have an emphasis, like, so sometimes I write something and I write like in red in this big font, ... that I'll tell people, that means pause. Just don't just run these phrases together. I'm looking for that sound bite. And I was recently taught that, and when you speaking, and to keep yourself from saying you just pause. And what you also doing when you pausing is you're giving the listener time to soak in what you just said. So, for instance, if I said to you, Rob, man, by the time I was 15, I became a millionaire, man, and I bought my mom a house and my dad a house, and then my uncles came, blah, 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 blah. So they just kind of ran, right? But if I said, Rob, by the age of 15, I became a millionaire. Now you're thinking, whoa, then I tell you what I did with that money. Because now me pausing made an indentation in your mind that I became a millionaire at 15. If I just, what does it say? I became a millionaire at 15. I bought my mom a house in Highland Park that was 20,000 square feet, blah, blah, blah. You kind of going, oh, man, that's all great stuff. That's cool. You bought our house, bought the daddy house. But I really want you to hone in on, by the time I was 15, I became a millionaire. And you got to pause. So you got to create that, that stamp. So stuff like that. We're good speech writing. And you'll write that in the speech.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And I've learned that from people who I think are pretty good. Like one of the best speechwriters to me is Dr. King, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Ted Sorensen. Ted Sorensen was Kennedy's speechwriter. That boy was a beast. That he was, man. You should, some of the prolific things that Kennedy said, and I looked and see who wrote it. It was the guy named Ted Sorensen, and this kid, well, it's not a kid, but John Favreau. So John Favreau, he has a podcast too as well. He became Obama's head speechwriter, and the way he got that job was he actually was writing for John Kerry. So when Obama spoke at the 2006 Democratic National Convention, he had a line in one of his speeches where he said, "This is not a black America or white America. This is the United States of America." But ironically, the Kerry camp wrote that same line, or very similar to that line.
Mm-hmm.
Every speaker that's scheduled to speak at the DNC and RNC, they have to submit the speech to the DNC. Obviously, you can't outshine the keynote. And I think Kerry was the keynote, if I'm not mistaken. No, Obama was the keynote. No, because Kerry came after him, right? So you can't outshine a person that's like the nominee or whatever going to be, right?
Yeah.
So Kerry's camp told Obama's camp, you can't say this line because he's going to say this line. And this guy, Kerry was speaking after Obama. Mm-hmm. So they took it out off the teleprompter because you got to submit the speech so they can put it in a teleprompter, program it, blah, 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 blah. Well, Obama was so damn brilliant. He knew at what part of that speech to say that line, although they took it out of the teleprompter. And guess what he said? He said it anyway.
So was it a shitstorm behind the scenes?
Yeah. So now Kerry, them guys going, man, what the fuck, So now they are scrambling. Now they can't go back and he can't say the same thing because they're going to say, well, we had it first. No, but he said it first, so you can't. So anyhow, So obviously the fact that I think Obama wrote that line, Obama was interested. Well, who wrote this? And John Favreau. So Kerry loses, of course, and he summons Favreau. Kerry obviously is not gonna do this thing, being how you think about joining my team, and so I think they chatted up for about maybe 30 minutes, and if I'm not mistaken, Obama gave him 30. He said, I want to write me something about whatever it was, and gave him 30 minutes. Walked out, came back. He had something. He was like, okay.
Now,
this boy got it.
Is this the same guy that works in Hollywood?
John Favreau?
Yeah.
He probably does, but I'm not sure. But yeah, he got a podcast called I think Pod Save the World or something like that. But he was like 20 or young 30-something years old. He's a young kid, man.
Back then.
Back then.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I'll have to look him up. Yeah, I could have sworn it's not like another John Favreau that's like in Hollywood. He's like a big time actor.
No. This kid's not an actor. No.
Oh, so okay, someone is different. Then.
No, it's someone different. Right?
Okay. Is this very lucrative as far as speech writing, or it just something?
It depends on. I mean, if these cats are getting, you said $650,000 per speech, man. I mean, who know how much they paying their speech writers?
Right.
I'm not getting no 6. Honestly, man, the rate that I charge really just depends on who I'm writing for. But a lot of times I'll barter it for just for for I don't want to say a favor, but just answer my calls. Just return my text, answer my calls. Because to me, that's much more, depending on who it is, of course, that's more valuable than me getting, $1,000,
Right.
or me getting $750.
Right.
Because now once that money is gone, they have no more obligation to even say hello to you again, right? So,
That's a good point.
They say, they can walk right past you, act like they don't even know you. They pay their debt to you, as opposed to, it took me, several hours to write something that you didn't have to write a check for. I'm not calling you every day. I'm not texting you every day. But if something comes up where typically, and to be honest with you, man, I do that more so to use that as a favor for somebody else. I make a lot of calls for other people. There's nothing I really need. I got the dream job. I make a very good living. I'm very blessed. I was like, most of the time it's for someone to say, man, do you know a guy that can blah, blah, blah. And I go, oh, I think I may know somebody, whatever. And that person just picks up my call, and then that's it. I mean, it's a couple of people who I do that to this day. And they go, well, this is me an invoice. I go, no, my invoice is when I send you a text, return it. Return the text message, man. Because money's not. I know we love to say money and everything, but then everyone can use money, but I'd rather have that relationship as opposed to you cutting me a $1,000 check.
This is based off of that mindset. I think someone is going to tap you into being some type of fire department top dog at some point. I hope it happens for you.
Man, Rob.
I think that's your calling. I think it is.
Yeah, you're not the only person that say that, but man, my patience sometimes is like, procrastination is one of my biggest, one of my pet peeves. I just don't. When you tell me things just take time or you gotta be patient, I want to know why. Don't just say that because someone told you that shit. Don't just say that because that's the fashionable thing to say. Tell me why. Like, yeah, I know you can't build an ark in an hour or even a couple of days. I know there's a lot that goes into that. I can explain that. But why certain things are not moving and you can't explain that means someone's bullshitting. Someone is not doing their job, or someone is procrastinating because they either don't want to do it, don't know how to do it, or don't have the courage to ask for help and know how to do it. And so therefore it gets tossed until they are made to do it. Now they have to, now you start from square one where you should have done this, when it first got to your desk.
Right.
People
just biting off more than they can chew.
I talk to a retired deputy fire commissioner right now. Some of the mistakes that I'm seeing, every now and then I see, and I go, well, how come he says, they'll say they won't call, because their ego would be like, we'll get in the way because, so you don't know how to do this. Well, it should be expected that you know how to do everything, because the person that does know how to do it, someone had to teach them. So to me, that's what I think why Mayor Daley, more so young Richard M. Daley, the son, why he was successful, because he kept young, smarter people around him. Good leaders keep smarter. You don't want to be the smartest man in the room all the time. So you keep smarter people around. In my head, I already know who I love to have working around me because they're just brilliant, and their talents are being wasted doing something else because people are insecure. They think you after their job. Yeah. They think you're gonna outshine them, and it's disheartening because the only people that suffer is the department, because you don't have the expertise or you don't have the experience, but your ego is impeding for you to tap into someone that can help you progress and make progress with this department, right? So God knows I am not that guy. I mean, I love talking and conversing with smarter people than me, because to me that keeps my interest. I go, oh man, I didn't know that. Okay, how you do this and that and the other, and I still feel secure because there's something that I may know how to do that I know they don't know how to do, or that's not their thing. But when you work as a unit or a team, like everyone loves to say, it goes better, right? So yeah, I don't know, man. These I don't know.
mean, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're not going to grow intellectually if you're constantly around
People
subordinate people. So yeah, you got to be around smarter people. That's what makes you grow. So
Right.
yeah, I totally get it.
Daly
You
was.
said
I mean, he said that. I keep young people around and work for the city. And then I release you from the nest and go into the private sector and make your money because now you've got this good city foundation on how to run a corporation. Chicago's a corporation, right? And the mayor is the chief executive officer of the city of Chicago. It's a corporation. It's incorporated in 17 whatever. It's incorporated in the city of Chicago. So
1780s.
1787, I think, it's something like that on that seal. So, yeah, man. So yeah, I would like to be around like smarter people. That's why I listen to different podcasts, like this guy Anthony Scaramucci, right? He was the press secretary for Trump for 11 days and got fired. But
I just remember Sean Spicer.
oh, spicy. So they call it Scaramucci the Mooch. He was there for 11 days, and what got him in trouble, he spoke the truth. His chief of staff later said that's what killed you. Basically he told him. But he was already a rich dude. He went to Tufts University. He got a Harvard law degree. He got a company called Skybridge. I think he's a hedge fund manager or something in finance. A rich dude. Come from humble beginnings, blue collar, from New York and I think from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And he like you said, he made a bunch of dough. But when you listen to his podcast, he's very humble, but he have very interesting people on his podcast. And just listening to him, and then I just take cues from people whose success I like to model from. Right, who's best to teach you, other than a person that's done it. That's why I never really talk to school counselors. Like, you haven't done that. What do you know? I mean, from what someone told you or what you read. If I want to know how it is to be a cop or fireman, I'm gonna go talk to a
cop
or fireman. Right, someone who don't have an investment in a lie to you. I mean, guidance counselors have an investment, because that's their job is to try to get enrollment and so on and so forth. But I mean, it's gotten me in trouble several times that I won't even mention. And when I went too far and talked to the person who, how the hell you get this number? That's a whole nother,
right.
That's a whole nother show. But yeah, I mean, I like to talk to the people where I will tell you this. So I started getting into finance bug. Like, man, how does this, I like to get into that business and learning and so on and so forth. So at the time, the movie, the one movie that Will Smith played with his own son, he was homeless.
Pursuit of Happiness.
So Will Smith played Christopher Gardner. That's the guy's real name.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a company down here called Gardner and Rich. At the time, he was working out in a building right across the street from the Sears Tower. And I had got my hands on an Ebony Jet magazine, and they did a feature with him. So I found out what building he worked at and what floor. So I wrote a letter, stating my interest, and I didn't mail it. I had someone drive me down there so they could stay in the car, and I went in the building, and literally in the middle of the night, no one stopped me, I'm shocked. No one stopped me. Walked in the building, got in the elevator, slid it under the office door. It was night, right? Slid in the office door. And didn't get a call for like a week. I called the office. Christopher Gardner himself picks up the phone. And it fucked me up. Because I didn't expect for him to pick up the phone. I got like starstruck right away. And he had me on speakerphone, which is also intimidating. Gardner. I was like, oh, damn. And I'm like, is this Christopher Gardner? Yes. And he's like, I'm very busy. Who is this? Then I snapped out of it. I gave him my 30-second elevator pitch. Hey, I wrote a letter, blah, 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 just said, blah, 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 blah. And he says to me, you're very lucky I even picked up this phone. He said, I only pick up the phone because my secretary is on vacation. And I was expecting a call from somebody. But if you're serious, call back next week when she come back from vacation. We'll set some up, and we'll see what we can do. I didn't call back. I didn't call back. And I don't know, because that's just not what God wanted me to go. Was it nerves? I'm on my mother's urn. I don't know why.
Is that probably one of your your most regrets up to this day?
Probably something like that. What would be at least one of the top 3 regrets that I did not call back, because man, I probably would be sitting on some stacks right now, man. You know, he done very well for himself.
Oh yes,
and
yes.
Someone, you know, a black man that come from humble beginnings, you living in subway bathrooms, you know, and worked your way to get these people to give you a job, and you didn't even have a suit. You know, you just wanted a chance.
Yes.
And someone, and Rob, that's what life is all about. Is that one person that give you that chance. Like I was saying earlier, like I know a few, you know, people with some very good means, millionaires, whatever. And his one brother said, Antwan, I hate that term, self-made millionaire. He said, nobody is self-made. It doesn't exist. He said, someone helped somebody along the way somewhere.
Yeah.
You didn't wake up and say it became the gene. You didn't need anybody. He said somewhere, and then that's when he told me his story. You know, I got successful because this one person believed in me and just said, okay. And that's what it takes. Like that, whoever that the hiring manager was at that, I think at that brokerage firm that gave Christopher Gardner that chance. Mm-hmm. And he went in and kicked ass. So now it goes in periods. They got this thing called carry. You ever heard of that?
No.
So carry is basically dividends. The thing with that is you don't know when you're going to get it, and you don't know how much it's going to be. So you get your regular salary, but when you are a partner of like a private equity firm, so they take money from different companies and they invest. So they typically go out to pensions, firefighters' pensions, police pensions, teachers' pensions, and other like venture capitalists and small whatever. They take the money and then they reinvest the money, and so it just one big cycle.
Yeah.
And so when they make the money after all the bills are paid, and then there are dividends, that's called the carry. So let's say you got 5 partners, and the dividends come out to be $1 million. That's everything is paid, all the taxes out, everything is paid. There's $1 million left. So then that million gets divided by the 5 partners. So everyone got $200,000 on top of whatever you're already making as a salary. But you don't know when it's all market driven, and whenever they do the numbers or whatever. So I was actually sitting next to her one day, and she opens up her account or whatever. Now she was out, and what happens is she was out of the business for a while, but you still entitled to that carry because it's called Fund 1, Fund 2, Fund 3, Fund whatever. So as long as that fund is still active that you are a part of, whether you're there with the company or not, you still get that carry.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, so sometimes those funds last 2, 3, 4, 5 years after you had left, because if you were still there, you would get that money. You still earned that, right? So she's sitting up there at the computer, and she was like, I seen her go, I'm like, what's wrong with you? And it was like, a couple $100,000. Just what happened is a week or so before it drops, you get a phone call from your accountant, whoever does the accounting from the firm, and it says, we need wiring instructions from you. That's when you know something about to come down. Because why would they be asking you for wiring instructions? But you still don't know. They may tell you, okay, we don't know exactly how much it's going to be, but we know at the minimum it's going to be like maybe 10 grand, 20 grand, but it's usually going to be more than what they quoting you.
Gotcha.
And it could be a week, it could be a month. They just know that for whatever happens, they've been prompted to call you. It says, we need wiring. So this, you start talking about wiring money. This ain't no Zelle me some shit, right?
I know.
So this ain't no Zelle, man. Them niggas talking about wiring me some money, right? And that's how I learned, man. I'm, because this is my girl. She said, so she get a call, hey, such and such, hey, so do you still have same wiring instructions, whatever? So yeah, this account, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, it should be around maybe 20, 30 grand, whatever, at the minimum, you know how this goes. It could be next week, it could be 3 days, but whatever. And so now you got this anticipation, well, most of them people, man, you're talking people that got real money, they're not sitting there living check to check. It's like it comes and it just comes, you know what I'm saying? But at that time, she was kind of, hurting a little bit because she went in the business for a while, and it's just a little more big-ass story.
It was definitely a blessing.
Right.
Definitely.
And it's bam, and I was like, I said, so that's how these boys do it? And so when they getting 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 carry per person, she still get kicked down with 30 grand, 25, 40 grand, which ain't nothing to sneeze at. When they made 10 million, they sold the company.
Wow.
They sold the company, and she got 2% of that sale. So They selling it for $10-20 million. That's a couple $100,000 all day long.
Jesus.
Yes.
Nice.
And then now you got that expertise, and now you can either open up your own firm or go somewhere else and parlay that. So I really think that God put her in my life at that time just so I can see how that business run, how that side of the world go.
Right.
And that's the thing they don't teach you. That's not in textbooks. And I even asked her, I said, well, how did your ex-boyfriend?
As far as culture-wise as well, as far as with black folks, because we just don't learn about money all the time growing up.
Not at that level.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We learn about you get a check, you pay your rent, maybe balance the checkbook, but shit, man, we make so little money, there's nothing to balance. There's no, that check gonna be gone by next, within the week, so that shit ain't shit to balance. You just make sure your rent is paid, you got some food in, and maybe get a haircut, whatever, but them boys, they talk different. They talk different, they think different. And I remember, someone was telling me about these different life insurance, right? Where you can get a whole life that brings you cash value.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my ex-girlfriend, her dad was insurance. He sold insurance. He had his own company, but he was selling New York life insurance products. He was one of the first blacks, and he was there for 55 years. So they called him, literally, he was called the Godfather. So when you became a salesman in the Chicago region, he was black, and over here, you had to go see the Godfather, and he kind of mentored you or whatever.
Wow.
So when I first met her, she had told me about the product. I'm like, I just bought regular life insurance because I needed it. So then, now he's passed away a couple years ago, and I kept in a TikTok and all this. I'm like, okay, let me see what this cash value, what is this shit is about. So his partner is still there, and I emailed her, and I got a meeting with her, and she said, well, how did you know about this? And it's interesting because it's kind of like, she know I'm intelligent, but she's like, well, what made you even think about this? Because we're not the typical people that ask about that stuff, right? So I said, honestly, I saw some things on TikTok, and I kept seeing it, and I did a little research, and I'm like, well, if it's something I can afford and I think it's worth it, I want to get into it. She said, okay, so this is what it is. So it was like she said, well, how much you trying to have, and when you trying to have it? And so I already have a policy, but the way he hooked it up for me, she said, his name was Gus. She said, Uncle Gus hooked you up. So you ain't got to take no medical physical. She said, you're a big dude, you're in shape, but still, you're supposed to do, I did do a physical. Man came to my house, man, and whatever. So she says, you don't even have to have anything new. You could take because I had a $500,000 death benefit. So I was able to tap into that policy, and if I pay more money, and I said, okay, if I retire in 10 to 15 years, I want to have $100,000 cash. That's not a loan. That's your money, right? On top of the death benefit, God forbid something happens. So it accumulates. So you really, after the first 3 or 4 years, 10 grand, 20, 30, 50, whatever. And at any time, you can tap into that money. That's your money. That's not a loan.
Yeah, like the first few years, you're really paying like the actual fees of the fund. Then after that,
you're really right. So
all the compound
it's almost
interest.
like a fancy savings account, but a whole hell of a lot higher interest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. That you take out on top of, you still got this death benefit. So then you get really fancy where you can borrow money from the death benefit. So if you got a $500 or $600 million death benefit policy after so many years, now that's the loan. So you could take $100,000 out of that to do something. You pay that money back, and you still accumulating your cash value if you're paying your monthly. Man, but that's how wealthy people and obviously their zeros is a whole lot more than my zeros. So I asked this one guy, "Do you have that?" He said, "Dude, I pay $6,000 a month for life insurance." But his shit is like, I think, a $10-15 million policy. You know what I'm saying? Right. He said, yeah. He said, dude, I had it for years. He said 7-8 years I've been paying $6,000 a month. So he can easily probably tap in and get $300,000-500,000.
Just like that.
Just like that. But it takes money to make money. Who got $6,000 to pay just on life insurance?
I know.
Right? And forget about it. Right? Just say that's $6,000, and maybe in 5 or 10 years I may need some money.
Right.
But anyway, so if you can afford $6,000, shit, you're talking, what's that? That's $72,000 a year that you paying for insurance.
Yeah,
that's someone's salary.
Right. Where does he live? I mean, what does he drive? Like, what?
Man, he's very modest. He lived in River North, and now since, man, the taxes got so stupid here in Illinois, he relocated to Florida.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But he still does politics and business here. But technically, he's in Florida because they have a much better tax. It's Republican, and yeah, man. So I keep myself around, them people, man, because I want to be there one day, and I ain't gonna do that fighting fires.
All right, man. Hey, Lieutenant Dobson, I really appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking the time out. I know that you got a really, really busy schedule with your captain's exam.
For having me. Anytime, man. We got to do this again and talk about whatever, man. I'm always about, service and spewing information once I learn something, because that's one thing our community, we just don't do, man. We just don't have the information, man. You need to look at Dr. Claude Anderson. He'll tell you like the 5 steps, man. To really
I want to read Powernomics.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to read that.
Until we able to get, tap into that, we're not gonna. I mean, it's gonna be rough.
Yes, sir.
So, but I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, man. And I'm sure that you're going to do some more studying, and you're going to see the wife and the kid. So
yeah, I'm gonna see what's going on with her. See how much money I got to spend this week.
Right. It never ends, man.
No, it doesn't.
All right, brother.